Hello, everyone. This is Arkatsuke, and I am here with the Pennsylvania oatmeal Jew himself, Jewpiter.
People's champ.
And we are here in the show that every day we try to name without naming, because if we were to actually tell you what it was called and what it meant, well, you would be banned from the European Union and you would disappear in the state of China.
It's the N word for gays and Jews put together, smushed together.
It's so horrible. Welcome to Kaggot. Anyway, so we are here because, we're all still more or less stuck in our homes. It's all going. And we have a question. Do we have rights during COVID-19?
No. False. We're talking about do you have rights, period.
Okay.
And he's going to be mad at me for interjecting right now, but he'll yell at me after the show, and that's fine. No, do you have rights, period? Because right now, what we're dealing with, it's a pandemic, sure, blah, blah, blah. We all have our opinions on it. Either you think it's not serious or it's serious. The question is, do you have rights, period? Because if they can tell you during a pandemic that you have no rights, then how do you have rights when it's not a pandemic? It seems more like an illusion, and that's what we're going to be arguing, and he'll be yelling at me about today.
Well, it's a very good question. Like, for instance, one of the things I asked before we started this is, does the First Amendment still apply if it can seem to be suspended without any kind of extraordinary call from the federal government or the president? I mean, yes, I know it's been declared a state of emergency, but does that mean all of a sudden that we don't have the right to assemble anymore?
Ask me. Go ahead, ask me if the First Amendment's real.
Is the First Amendment real?
The First Amendment is not real, sir.
Please explain.
So, a group of wild, crazy cats and kittens went out in protest of the lockdown, the shutdown, and quarantine, and they went out to protest.
You're talking about Michigan.
No, this is North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And but Michigan as well. And these wild, violent, non-violent protesters were out just protesting, saying, we don't believe in this. The whole point of the First Amendment, the whole point of peaceful assembly and the right to it, is that when your government is doing things that you think personally is not in your best interest, the whole point of the First Amendment is to be able to peacefully assemble and tell them, we're not into this. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic, if it's a war, or it's peacetime, or it's a Tuesday, sunny afternoon. It doesn't matter. You have the right to tell your leaders, nope, don't like what you're doing. Here's why. One of them was arrested. The rest were broken up and sent home. Now, if your right to peaceful assembly and your First Amendment, first for a reason, if that is able to be suspended during a pandemic, which, by the way, has just about the same death rate as the flu, but we're not going to go there. If they can suspend your rights and amendments, just because they claim that there's this horrible Ebola-like plague, then you don't have rights. And that's my position, and that's what we're going to explore. And Katz usually has a more thoughtful position than me. I'm more fire-driven, but I think, no, we don't have fucking rights. If they can arrest a protester for protesting, then we don't have rights. I don't care if it's a pandemic or if it's not.
No, it's really an interesting question, because I was having this discussion. I often use my husband as a litmus test for like what a more typical reaction is, because he doesn't really follow the news in depth. He just sort of, it's not that he's ill-informed. It's just, he's normal. I'm a news junkie, so, and I remember talking about how people were being arrested for attending religious gatherings and services, some of them even outside, which I think is a little strange. But if we're trying to say this is ostensibly a health concern, like I can't imagine being outside is much of a problem. But
And in your car, by the way, they were in their cars.
oh yeah, and his immediate response was, we don't want everyone to get sick. And I'm like, well, okay, yes, like from a health perspective, that's true. However, it's the same thing about, asking, like, does a person have the right to throw themselves off a building? Like, it's kind of the ultimate libertarian question. Like, if you have the right to choose for yourself, then you have the right to make bad decisions. So, do I think that getting together in large groups is a good idea? Probably not. We don't. There's a lot of things that we don't know or understand about this virus, and we're going to go back and forth, and it's going to be many years before we have any clear answers about it, I'm sure, if we ever will. But you still, in theory, being America and not China, have the right to make a decision, even if people advise against it. And it's interesting how a lot of governors are basically saying, no, you don't have that right to make that choice.
Well, real quick, number one, the Catholic, I believe, forgive me, it might not be Catholic, might have been another type of Christianity, but they were in cars, and the police came to break them up. They weren't causing any harm. By the way, no mosques yet have been raided. They've just been advised. 15 Jewish synagogue Shabbos goers were, I believe, arrested. They might not have been arrested, but they were shut down because they decided, we're going to synagogue. We're going to shul. Sorry, fuck you. And they were cut off from the knee. Stefan Molyneux, by the way, Mr. Where's Your Eggs At? He said, have any synagogue people been shut down? And literally and he knew what he was doing, but literally the day before, synagogue people were shut down and I think arrested. But I'll say this, it's not, I agree. You said it as usual. You said it best. Do we agree that you should be in large groups next to each other? No, I don't think you should, personally. I don't really believe in this virus like most people do, but I don't also think that you should be gathering in large groups, especially next to each other. I believe in social distancing right now. But for the government to tell you that all of a sudden, because we have decided it's in your best interest to revoke your rights, that you have none. Tucker Carlson was on, and he said he had this governor on.
The New Jersey governor?
Thank you, New Jersey governor. And the guy goes, and Tucker says, well, where in the Bill of Rights does it say that you get to restrict religious activities through a pandemic? And the governor goes beautifully. Tucker always smokes fools. He goes, well, I wasn't thinking about the Bill of Rights. And Tucker goes, I know you weren't. And that's the point. It's that we have the right. Doesn't mean freedom isn't something that's always going to be in your best interest. Freedom is something that you need to fight for because the things that other people might not think are in your best interest are none of their business. Freedom is something that's yours. It belongs to you. It belongs to you. It belongs to Magga the dog. But it doesn't belong to anybody else. It's an individualist thing. You have individual freedom. And so for them to steal that on these false premises or any premise is fascism to me.
It's a very tricky thing because self-determination is incredibly important. Now, I'm going to step back just a little bit for the sake of argument. So, for instance, when I used to work in nursing homes, like I would sometimes have relatives who would want to visit their family members when they were infected with, are you familiar with MRSA?
Of course.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, MRSA is, and I'm going to forget the exact acronym right now, but it's
Middle Eastern Respiratory.
No, not that. Like that is a thing, but no, like I'm talking about methicillin resistant. It's this antibiotic resistant infection that is very common in nursing homes, and it's very difficult to treat, and it can be because it's resistant to most of our antibiotics. And so sometimes we'd have family members that would want to visit their relatives, and we'd have to tell them, like, well, we really, 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 really shouldn't see them right now because they're in contact precautions right now, or sometimes in complete isolation. And they'd be very upset about this, and it's like, you don't have the right to tell me I can't see my family. And we would say, well, no, we're not telling you you can't, but we really advise you not to, because you could A, get sick yourself, and B, contaminate the whole facility and potentially your workplace. So there are times where it is great for people to step back and think about, like, okay, I have the right to do something. Should I do something? We kind of already talked about that. But it is really creepy though when you don't even have the choice at all. When you're not being advised, when you're not being strongly cautioned, when
Well,
you're being
wait.
said no.
What you just said was it's a good example. It's a good counterpoint. It is that like when, especially when, um, especially when you have elderly people or children, you tell them no. You know, you cannot do this. Like, I'm your I'm your caretaker.
We're responsible for it.
But when you have average everyday in good mental and physical health, totally cognizant of what they're doing, when you have people, you're not talking about the elderly or children.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my counterpoint to the MRSA point. You have the right to protest, which
Mm-hmm.
means you have the right to tell your government in public, no. The answer is no. We don't agree. We're protesting.
Correct.
So that's a right. Let's say the government says, well, we're at war and we're bombing people. And by the way, let's say in this analogy, those people that were bombing not only did nothing wrong, but we're just going to steal and rob from them. Okay? That's our war. And I go outside with you, cats, and Magga the dog. We go out and we hold our banners up and we say, this is wrong. The government says, it's a state of emergency right now. You can't protest. I don't care what the premise is that they're taking our rights away. They cannot do it. Period. I don't care if it's going to kill me. I don't care if them going to protest is going to kill me. I don't care. I don't want to live in a world or a country where I can't go out and tell my government to go fuck itself, because my favorite quote of all time, and think about this, by Lenny Bruce. I know I say this all the time. Take away the right to say fuck, and you take away the right to say fuck the government. And you can never give away your right to protest during a pandemic, even if, as I'm pretty sure you do, you're the son of doctors, you're a nurse yourself. And I also think it's dumb. But we have to defend their right to possibly infect us, because you have to defend the right to put the middle finger up to your government. You have to. No matter what, they can't take that right.
I agree. I mean, I think it's really, I keep saying interesting. I don't know what else to say. Under any other challenge other than the fear of sickness, I'm not sure that in America you'd be able to get away with this kind of threat. The threat of terrorism, I don't think people would be willing to give up this much. But the fear of being exposed to something that you cannot see and being able to infect others without knowing it, this I sometimes I almost wonder whether the amount of vagueness about this virus is on purpose, because it has allowed for, I mean, people are basically making the arguments for their own oppression at this point.
Right.
And again, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't be taking extreme precautions to protect the elderly, the vulnerable, people in general. But I really wonder whether, as they say, whether the treatment is worse, whether the cure is worse than the disease at this point, because there seem to be two arguments that are made about this whole situation. Some of them are saying, like, on the one hand, you have the people who are saying, like, okay, well, look, nothing, like, clearly everything has been exaggerated. No, we aren't dying in the streets. The hospitals aren't overwhelmed. Like, the zombie apocalypse is not upon us. Therefore, we should go out and continue our lives. And then you have the other side of the coin where they're saying, well, the reason that the zombie apocalypse is not upon us is because we have followed these precautions. And I'd like to think that the truth might be somewhere in the middle. Taking precautions during an unknown health emergency is wise, but using those same precautions so bluntly as to cause incredible social damage and rather unscientifically, just arbitrarily, like like in some states the precautions seem to make sense. In other states you have
Well,
like,
wait, hold on. Let me stop you. You're going
okay,
into different territory.
okay,
That's a derailment we can't afford because we're not gonna. We can do that tomorrow because I'd
okay,
like to. I was actually thinking about doing this with you tomorrow with the whole should we be shutting down the economy or shouldn't we? The moral
uh-huh,
question. But right now, I want to focus on the rights thing because
okay. Well, and
you
that's what I mean.
don't. You were talking about the invisible enemy. You were talking about the subtleness of it and the mystery of this could creep up on me and my family at any point, so I'm willing to give up my rights. When our country was founded, and I hate to be Mr. 1776 Patriot, Cacaw, Eagle, MAGA Warrior 99,
Well,
but
sometimes you have to go back to the original.
you have to sometimes. These people, not only did they know their enemy, they knew their enemy could kill them and would kill them, and they had all the firepower.
And they
Britain,
had plagues back then too,
yeah,
by
and
the
they had
way.
plagues back then too. So
Worse
they
than
were
we
not
have.
only dying of these diseases, they were also facing one of the world's greatest military powers of all time, naval and on land. And by the way, we couldn't have defeated England, and we didn't. That's a
No,
lie. We
we
did
had
not
friends.
defeat
We
England.
had help.
They went back home. We eventually outgrew England. We fought them off. There's a big difference. If
Hmm.
it came down to actually fighting, in the end, they probably could have won. We just had more heart than they did,
They just
and
decided it
we
wasn't
shoved
worth the
our red,
trouble.
white, and blue cock down their throat. And that's what happened.
It,
But
it became way more trouble than it was worth.
exactly, that's what it is. But they knew for a fact they were going to lose. We did. We knew for a fact we were going to lose. But we didn't care. We said our freedoms are worth. I'd rather live on my feet than die on my knees. And or I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And that's the mentality they had, and that's what bought us these rights. And
Hmm.
generation after generation after generation of Americans have protected that. And now, with a pandemic coming out of a communist goddamn country, we're like, take our rights. Oh, the First Amendment? You have that. Oh, shut down all the gun stores? The Second Amendment? Oh, fuck that. Protesting? We don't need that. You're right. You got it, Dr. Fauci, Bill Clinton, and George Soros' best friend. Oh, no. Shoot us with all the vaccines, test us, take everything. Take the Fourth Amendment, too, by the way. Bust into our house. No quarter? Fuck it. Take that, too.
It is weird how people, I think people have taken for granted the amount of freedom and security that we have in this country for so long that when they're given just a taste of real fear, of uncertainty, that rather than face that fear and uncertainty, that most people don't even see the conflict between these authoritarian measures. As long as it's in the name of health, it's like it's a whole nother discussion that doesn't even apply. And it's
Meanwhile, by the way, the health, I love that. I love that you use the word health. Health is something manageable. Coronavirus, by the way, is manageable with certain
mhm,
medications, hydrochloroquine, Z-Paks, zinc can help you fight off the virus, etc.
mhm.
And social distancing can help you fight it. But they're willing to give up their rights for that. Yet people were willing to take a literal bullet in the face, hundreds of them in the face, stabbed, mutilated, have their women raped, have their everything decimated, losing everything for our freedom. And us, people who grew up with this freedom, and just like you said, it's such a vague concept, freedom to us, because we were granted it. Like the left says, we were privileged. Privileged. We have freedom privilege. It's like white privilege, except instead of white privilege, which doesn't exist, freedom privilege does. We were born with all this. It was handed to us.
We've had it for so long that I don't think people even can understand what it's like to live in a world without it. They just assume that all of these draconian measures are just temporary erosions that will, I don't think they even see them as erosions in a lot of cases. I think they see them as just extreme measures that will, of course, naturally clear up. And it's like, well, they'll probably clear up, but not on their own. They'll clear up because we have a significant portion of the population who thankfully are thinking about this. The people in Michigan, the people in North Carolina, you said, like
Yeah.
people who are legitimately upset that, as we said, the cure has become worse than the disease. You cannot give I don't being healthy and living in a prison is not an acceptable trade-off.
Amen.
There has to be a middle ground between being healthy and safe and living in China with a Star-Spangled Banner.
Do you know who was safe?
Who?
The people in Wuhan, in China. Out on the outskirts of Wuhan, Chinese government officials boarded up all their doors, boarded up all their windows, came in with army men, boarded up their whole apartment structures, and trapped them in there. And they had no freedom, but they were safe from the virus.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure all of them are dead. But
Well, they were safe from food also.
safe from food, safe from freedom of assembly. They were safe.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we are. We're safe. But the point is, our rights are something that in times of crises will happen all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
Crises abound everywhere, all the time. The plastic in our ocean, the erosion of our economy right now, the free fall of our economy. Crises happen. They come and go, and
It's part of being alive.
always going to be an adversary. But the problem is, what you're left with afterwards is what's important. For instance, and I hate to jump ahead, and I know I've criticized you for doing it, but it's relevant. For instance, this crisis will pass. The coronavirus will pass. But what happens to all the small business owners who are out of business and all the big corporations that are buying up our entire middle class right now? What happens to our country after this pandemic? Because pandemics will happen. The important thing to remember is what you are left with after the pandemic. Yes, there are preventative measures that need to be taken, but are you willing to sacrifice I know the left is like, fuck the Second Amendment. Yeah.
Well, they see this as an opportunity to reshape the country.
Are you willing to sacrifice your First Amendment right to protest the government for a pandemic? I'd rather die. And I'm not being Mr. Macho. I'd literally rather die than sacrifice my First Amendment. Period.
And I think that's the perfect note to end on. That if you take anything from this broadcast, and thank you for getting to this point, we want to survive. We want to come out of this healthy, but not just in body, and we want to come out healthy in country. Because what's the point of having healthy bodies if the country itself that nourishes us is sicker as a result of it? So everyone, please stay safe and take care of yourselves, but do not let yourselves be taken advantage of. Like, this will end, and it has to end. Don't let it not end. Thank you, everyone.
God bless you guys, really.